Hi y'all, and welcome to my first official book review. I'm Belle. I am very nervous, if you can't tell. It's my very first YouTube video, but I have been thinking about doing this for a long time. And I'm sure I'll do an intro video at another point, but I know that if I don't get this video out today, it may never ever get out. And so I want to just dive right into it and tell you why you all came here in the first place, because I hate long YouTube intros to videos. I am here to review my very first book on on YouTube. I do have an Instagram, it's at bellsbookstop, where I have been kind of posting books that I've been reading, but I feel really compelled to make my first booktube video about the book Trust. And I just finished reading it yesterday. It is about 402 pages. It took me, I want to say, a week. Part of that was I wasn't really I have a pretty demanding job, and so I had 5 days off for Diwali, which happy belated Diwali, everybody. We had a wellness day on Monday, and then today is election day. And so I've really just been able to kind of dig into this book and finish it really, really quickly. My goal is usually to read about 2 to 3 books a month. And so I try to give myself about a week and some wiggle room. So I think I finished this in just under a week, actually. But it is a Pulitzer Prize winner. It actually tied all of the drama. And I think in 2023, or I think it's a 2023 tied, but it might be 2022. It's by Hernan Diaz, who is an Argentinian author, and this is his second novel, and his very first novel was a Pulitzer Prize finalist. And so to go from your first novel being a finalist to your second novel being awarded, he's just got really high standards. Or he's at least set really high standards for himself. I picked up this book because a lot in my life has changed recently. I just moved to Virginia from California. I have a new job that's quite demanding. I have, my husband and I got married this year, and so my reading practice has just not been as dedicated as I usually like it to be. But also what that meant was I was just reading things that I really enjoyed and knew I would enjoy, like fantasy. And that's no shade to fantasy. I love fantasy. I love dragons, and I love magic and I love spells and all of those things. But it was just something that I felt really comfortable reading, and it didn't really require me to stretch. And so now that my life has started to slow down just a little bit, I decided that I wanted to go back to stretching reading, and Pulitzer winner felt like a stretch. I typically don't... My reading is not as refined, I guess, as other people's might be in terms of reading something that's going to have a Pulitzer logo on it. I think most of the time when I've read books like this, it's been for English class, literally for English class. And this, honestly, just to hop right into it, I know I'm like probably 4 minutes, you're already 4 minutes in the video, but just to hop right into it, this felt like a book that I would have been assigned in 12th grade English. It really, or in college, I was an English history double major. And when I first started reading it, within the first 10 pages, I was like, I'm not going to finish this book. But I did. And I absolutely love this book. It really enraptured me. And, I felt like I was reading, and what didn't enrapture me originally was because it felt like I was reading something that had been assigned to me by, my 11th grade English teacher. And it's just one of those books that I felt like maybe if I originally, when I first started reading it, if I'd been in a book club and I really wanted to have a conversation about it, like this is a book that I wanted to talk about with other people, like I would in an English class. It gave me Great Gatsby, Great Gatsby vibes, F. Scott Fitzgerald, the Edith Wharton series, which come to find out is actually one of Diaz's biggest writing inspirations, but I took a whole class on Edith Wharton, I think my sophomore year of college. The prose is very similar and just like dainty almost. I can't really place it, but the prose is eloquent. The prose reads, it sounds like money. And Trust is a book about money, at least on the surface. And I think that's what I loved about this book, is that you think you're walking into a story and really you're walking into a kaleidoscope of different views and perspectives. So the book at its core is in four parts. The first part is a novel within a novel, which you don't find out that you're reading a novel within a novel until later in the book. But the first part is about, I believe their names are Benjamin and Helen Rask. They are a couple. Helen is the daughter of socialites. Benjamin is the son of financiers, or, is the long line of financiers. And it's just like about their just, I hate to say it because it doesn't sell it, but like their dreadfully boring life. They are very isolated people who are both individually brilliant in their own rights. Helen speaks multiple languages fluently. Benjamin comes from a long line of businessmen. One of the things that made me not want to keep reading originally, that pops up later in the book, is I am a Black reader. And not that, I can't read books about finance and trust and New York and all of the above. But the first couple of pages, they kind of talk about how Benjamin Rask in the novel ascends to being the financier that he is, and like all the people around him and how they've created wealth, like the generations prior to him. And it's very clear that the money that he manipulates and turns into this robust Wall Street finances stems from enslavement. And there's just no mention of enslavement at all. They kind of, the author of the novel within the novel, I think his name's, I remember Harold Vanner. He just says like his great-great-grandfather was into tobacco farming. We know who's farming tobacco, and there's just like no mention of it. And so that made me roll my eyes. But what's so beautiful about this book is when you think things are glossed over or you think things don't matter, they come back up, even in like a small, tiny way, which I think is just magical. And slavery is brought back up, and it's maybe just like a couple of lines. It's in the third section, which I'll get to. It's spoken by someone that that narrator doesn't necessarily have full faith in anymore. But it just was like a nice, and it's the way this text is interwoven, like the things that you think don't matter or the things that you overlook, it's like a puzzle. They come back up. You're like, that's the corner piece that I've been looking for. Oh, this is the piece that I want to like weave together. And so while this book does read like something that I would never have picked up on my own without it being assigned to me, I picked up the book because it's a Pulitzer and I wanted to challenge myself. And this book is challenging because it's so beautifully all tied in together. I don't really know how to explain it, but that's So part one is a novel within the novel. Part two is an autobiography about a man named Andrew Bevel. And you find out later that actually the novel within the novel is supposed to be based loosely on his life with his wife, which is, fascinating. And so it's his autobiography, and so he goes through his life, how he came upon his money. He describes his wife. A key point of the first book is that the first section, the novel within the novel, is that Helen Rask, she suffers with a mental illness. And in the second autobiography, you find out that according to her husband, that is not the illness that she suffered from. It wasn't a mental illness, but a physical illness. And so as you're reading part two, you're noticing that the stories are very aligned, but they're still different, and they're different enough to make you question what is the real story. But you know that the first story is a novel, so it's going to be fictitious. You feel like you can rely on the autobiography that you are reading. And then you get to the third part. And the third part is by an Italian woman named Ida Partenza. And Ida is the daughter of an Italian immigrant who is also an anarchist, which is fun. And which is also not just fun, but it's key because the first two sections are just so overwhelmingly capitalist in nature and proud to be capitalist in nature. So it just gives you like that little bit of tension. But Ida is actually the ghostwriter of the autobiography that you see in book two. So, now that you know that it's written by, it was written by a ghostwriter, now you get to see her perspective both from the past when she was writing and learning about it from Andrew Bevel, as well as in the future when she's trying to learn more about it after his death. And you can see all of these inconsistencies popping up as she's writing or ghostwriting the autobiography. So then that makes the autobiography an unreliable narrative. But because now that you've read a fictitious novel within a novel, a autobiography that makes you question its reliability, then of course you question the reliability of Ida herself. But not because she gives you any reason to do so. At least I didn't think so. But she does a lot of questioning of herself. And then the last part of the book, which I think makes it so beautiful and it pulls it all together, is the diary of the wife of Andrew Bevel, Mildred Bevel, who Helen Rask in the novel within the novel is tasked to write about, who Ida writes about. And, it's during her last days, essentially, the diary that you read. And so much comes into perspective. And I think that's what's so brilliant about it, is because this book in itself, it's titled Trust. It's a double entendre, right? It's not just about trust financially, but it's about trust, who do you trust in the narrative, as your narrator. And you can't trust anybody. And at least I don't. And I think one of the reasons why I walked away loving this book after thinking about it, because it is slow paced. You feel like you're reading, the first episode of Downton Abbey in the novel form before things pop off. But I was an English history double major in undergrad, history teacher later, and it's so powerful because I'm so used to reading these neat, tidy little stories where you don't question the narrator, where you're not forced to put things together or question things. And that's just not how life works. That's not how history is written. That's not how it's not how anything works. All of the things that we believe are the truth are really a variation of what happened. And we don't know. And sorry if you can hear my fan squeaking, but we don't know. And I think that's what makes it so fun, is that it's messy. This book is so neatly written and so like bundled up in big words and high money and things of that nature. And you don't know. There's no one literally to trust, and it makes you think about everything else in your life, or what we think we know is true. How do we trust things in life? And so I love it. I cannot recommend it more. I do think that this is a book that you will never fully appreciate it if you don't get to the end. The big reveal, in my opinion, is between pages 379 and 381 of this 402-paged book. It is absolutely a book that you have to read all the way through to understand. I can understand why people might hate this book. It's not a book that's going to be written in a bow. It's a book that you have to come back to. It is a book where when something new is revealed, you have to scroll back through the pages to be like, wait a second, that's not, no, is that, like, what is the truth? And I think even more powerfully, this book on its surface is a book about money, but deeply, this is a book about masculinity. It's a book about money, masculinity, and how the two of those things together shape power. And my little English brain could just like not handle it. And I think the essence of the book, without, giving away any reveals or any spoilers, is between page 216 and 217, but in particular on page 217, so I'm actually going to read it to you. So this is when Ida Partenza's dad is talking to her, the anarchist, is talking to her, the ghostwriter, just about his political views and how he has a deep, I don't want to say hatred, but kind of hatred for Wall Street and capitalism, and anything that is not of the working class. So he says, history itself is just fiction. A fiction with an army. And reality is a fiction with an unlimited budget. That's what it is. And how is reality funded? With yet another fiction, money. Money is at the core of it all, an illusion we've all agreed to support unanimously. We can differ on other matters, like creed or political affiliations, but we all agree on the fiction of money, and that this abstraction represents concrete goods. And I think goods in that moment is also a double entendre, like a goods as in products and services, and good as in good money. We agree that money is good. And obviously he's an anarchist, so he doesn't believe that. But this book really talks about, especially with the reveal, how money shapes reality, how money shapes history, how money shapes power, and also how masculinity is wrapped into all of those things as well. What the expectations of men are, what the expectations of women are, even when we're given all of the clues I'm trying to say it without revealing, we still miss the reveal. We still miss the essence. At least I did, because of the ways that I think about, or I've been taught to think about, or socialized to think about femininity, masculinity, money, the 1800s through the 1930s. Whose role is what? who's behind what, who's spinning the wheels. And that makes you just question everything that we know and everything we've been socialized to know. So, I don't know. Okay. Sorry if things look different. My camera lost power. Things that I'm learning about from my new time. But anyway, I would probably give this book out of 5, 4.5. The reason for that is, even though I know it's a Pulitzer and like who cares what my opinion is, it loses 0.5 for the speed. It is a very slow-paced book, which if you don't have patience, if you don't have the ability to continue to pick it up over and over again, you will forget what happened before, mostly because there's so many like rudimentary things. And at the same time, I kind of feel bad for taking away 0.5 because it's the perfect style for this time period. They're writing about, you know, part of it is situated, actually the crux of this is situated right after, or right before the Great Depression, in the Gilded Age, if you will, where people with lots of money lived in laps of, you know, the lap of luxury, and moved really, really slowly. And I think also some of the slow pace it's perfect because it makes you feel trapped while you're reading it, and you realize that the characters in this book, they're all trapped in some way, some more than others, and that money is not as liberating as one would like to think. And I think like all throughout that, like, you know, thinking about how capital is made, who's responsible for capital, how is it distributed, who can be thanked, who should be shunned, what does it save you from, or what does it encase you in, along with like who do you trust, and how does, again, I will say over and over again, money is the easy theme in this book. Like if you were writing an essay on this book, the only thing that came out of it was the character's relationship to money, I would be disappointed. But back to the point is the pace of this book and the theme of money go together. And it's still too slow. Especially, you know, me, I like to, well, you don't know me, this is my first video, but I like dragons, I like, you know, explosions, I like really fast things, and this book has none of it, and yet this book is still worth reading. It's worth picking up and having conversation. It's worth thinking about critically. It's something that, and I you know, I'm not going to lie to you, I read this book with a dictionary at the ready, or the dictionary.com app at the ready. There were so many words that I didn't know. I do now, which is fun. But it's a book that I'm glad I picked up. I would encourage you to pick it up as well. If you want to think really deeply, if you are okay with things not being as they seem, or maybe they are as they seem, you don't really know. And if you're okay with none of your questions really being answered, or at least the questions that you thought mattered being answered. There are quite a few questions that are answered, or at least what you decide you can trust is the answer. Anyway, I hope y'all pick it up. I would love if you joined me on my journey here at Bell's Book Stop. I'm Bell's Book Stop on Instagram, on TikTok, as well as on YouTube. I'm really trying to hold myself accountable. I love reading. I want to share my love for reading, and encourage y'all to read too. So, all right. Thanks, y'all.